Well, good morning, or it's good morning on the East Coast of the U.S. right now, but uh, my name is Meredith. I'm the Senior Program Manager here at Atlas Corps, and I'm here with Sudakshina. And she has also been corresponding with you about your visas as Program Assistant. And so we are excited to be working with you guys on your visa preparation. First, I want to say congratulations on being accepted as Acumen Fellows. I know it's such a competitive process and a very prestigious program, so we're really excited to be partnered with Acumen and working with you guys. If you have any questions while you're watching this video, feel free to type them in the comment section of YouTube, and we will get to them at certain points of the webinar where we take questions, or at the end of the webinar, so just be patient and we'll get to your question. And let me briefly go over sort of the agenda of what we'll be covering today. First, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Atlas Corps. I'm going to talk about how to schedule your visa interview. I know a lot of you are working on that right now, or already filling out your forms, but I just wanted to touch on it in case anyone has questions. And then I next want to give you some general tips for your visa interview, our advice for being successful. And then finally, we're going to do a practice interview where I'm going to play the part of a consular officer and Sudakshina will play the part of a fellow. And we will go through a practice interview so that you can know how to how to answer the questions that a consular officer might ask. And then finally, we'll just talk about what to take with you and answer any questions you have. So with that being said, we will go ahead and get started. So just to briefly describe Atlas Corps first, Atlas Corps is an overseas fellowship for the world's best nonprofit leaders. Our mission is to address critical social issues by developing leaders, strengthening organizations, and promoting innovation through an overseas fellowship of skilled nonprofit professionals. It's a 6 to 18-month professional fellowship where fellows serve full-time at host organizations. And we're very similar to Acumen in that we're both developing young leaders through international exchange to work on social issues. And because of this common mission, we've partnered together in carrying out this mission in developing nonprofit or social sector leaders. And what we do is we sponsor international Acumen Fellows visas and manage some of the logistics of the program. Like, we'll also be working with you on your, we disperse your stipends, I believe, and we also provide some tax assistance, some of those logistical pieces. And then Acumen is, of course, managing your training program. We try and find other ways to collaborate, but in general, that's kind of how it's set. We're basically trying to take care of these logistics so that Acumen can focus solely on providing you guys a really amazing training experience. And so for most of the year, your main point of contact for questions about your assignment or your host organization, things like that, will be, you'll be talking to Acumen, or the orientation you guys are going to go through, things like that. If you have questions about your visa or some of those financial pieces, we help manage that. So that's kind of the division of labor. I'll just pause and see if we have any questions so far. I don't see any, which is great. So I'll just keep on moving along. The next thing I want to go over is how to schedule your visa interview. As you all know, we've already sent your DHL package of visa documents. I think it was last week, if I remember. So let us know if you haven't received it yet. It usually takes about a week to get there, so please let us know if it seems delayed. There's still one required document called the DS7002, which requires a signature from Acumen, but we are getting their signatures very soon, so we'll be able to email you a copy of that document soon, probably even today or tomorrow, and you'll just bring it to your visa appointment. You'll print it out at home and then print it and then bring it to your visa interview. And then while you're waiting for your documents, or if you've already gotten your documents, you can schedule your appointment by going to the U.S. Embassy's website in your country. And basically, it will require you to fill out a DS-160 form. And it's a bunch of standard questions about your program and who your sponsor is. And we've actually written up sort of the suggested answers to those questions on a pre-arrival website that was included in that long email we sent you about how to schedule your visa interview. So if you're having trouble filling out the DS-160 form, or if you have questions, I really encourage you to make sure you look at the email we sent and look at that link that provides all the, or at least most of the, questions that people usually have. It will also require you to pay a visa processing fee, sometimes called an MRV fee, of $160 US, and that fee will be reimbursed. And I know sometimes people get confused about the fees. Atlas Corps has already paid a $180 SEVIS fee. You pay the MRV $160 fee and then get reimbursed later, because it often involves like going to a local bank or something, so it's hard for us to pay it initially. So you'll fill out that form, you'll pay the fee, and then you'll be able to schedule your appointment. Each embassy sometimes has like a slightly different process, so definitely just check out your embassy's website, and it should describe all the steps in great detail how to take. Once you've scheduled your appointment, please let Sudakshina and me know, what date your appointment is and what city you'll be doing your appointment in, so that we can, keep track of where you are in the visa process. We would like you to schedule appointments by, mid to late August at the latest. I can't remember. I think, did we say August 25th? Okay, yeah, August 25th. So that would be like the latest. We'd suggest if you can get an earlier appointment, definitely get an earlier appointment. Yeah, August 25th is already a little bit late. But if you can't get an appointment until after August 25th, go ahead and schedule it anyways, and then we'll work to try and get you an expedited appointment. And we can give you some additional advice on that. So, so try and schedule your appointment as soon as possible, because the schedule does fill up. Try and schedule it for sooner rather than later. So just let us know, keep us updated if you're having trouble with the scheduling. All right. So let me briefly pause and see if we had any questions yet. Doesn't look like it, which is great. So the next thing I wanted to go over are some general tips for your visa interview. In your visa interview, you should emphasize that Atlas Corps is your program sponsor, and you'll be serving at your host organization, which is Acumen. You should speak in terms of Atlas Corps. This is a one-year training program with Atlas Corps. You actually don't even really need to talk about Acumen unless you're asked. In fact, if you go through the whole visa interview without mentioning Acumen, that's perfectly fine. And specifically, you also have your field placement organization, which you're serving abroad. So whether it's India, Tanzania, whatever country you're serving in for your field placement, that as well. You can go the whole visa interview without mentioning them at all. And it's not because it's something to hide, but because talking about 3 different organizations in a visa interview, Atlas Corps, Acumen, and your field placement organization, that can get really confusing to a consular officer. And the more confusing it is, it can hurt your chances of being approved. So if you're asked about Acumen, you can say Atlas Corps and Acumen are partners. Atlas Corps sponsors our visas, and Acumen leads our training program in collaboration with Atlas Corps. If you're asked about your field placement, you can basically say, oh, I'm going to be assisting this project in this other country, Nigeria, India, wherever, and I'm going to be building their capacity by doing X, Y, and Z. So just, Atlas Corps should be the main focus of the conversation, because we are your visa sponsor, even if Acumen is providing your training. Pardon me. The second big tip that we have is to look for strong ties to your country and think about how you can show that to a consular officer. One of the main things that they're looking for is, you know, that you're going to return to your home country after the fellowship, and that's part of the reason why we have that section of the fellow agreement about returning to your home country. So, some ways that people show ties back to their home country is that they've spent their whole life there and have grown up there. They have a job there waiting for them back home. They have family there, whether it's, you know, a spouse, kids, or, you know, parents, etc. Or you have property. These are all reasons that you might have a tie back to your home country. If you don't have any of those things, it's still okay. We have plenty of fellows who apply for a visa who don't necessarily have like a job waiting for them back home after the fellowship. So in those cases, people also talk about the reasons why they want to return, and it might be something, you know, related to their career goals, that they really want to work on, you know, these issues in their home country, things like that. We'll talk about it in our sample interview. Another piece of advice is to keep your answers short and succinct. Doesn't need to be a huge long answer. A lot of visa interviews are actually only like 2 minutes long or 5 minutes long. So just keep your answers short and succinct, and you'll be good. Always talk about, my next tip is to always talk about training and not employment. So this is specifically a J1 trainee visa, which means you are training or you're volunteering or you're serving. Those are all acceptable words. Work and employment is a different visa. If you've ever worked in the US before, it's typically like a H1 or something like that visa. It's a different visa. And so if you say, oh, I'm applying to work in the US, they shut you down and say, I'm sorry, you're applying for the wrong visa. Thank you, goodbye. So they very easily could say that. So always focus on the training aspect. You should be able to describe Atlas Corps is. That's why I went over kind of an introduction to Atlas Corps at the beginning of this interview or video. So make sure you have kind of a, even if you don't know Atlas Corps intimately, you know, it wasn't the program you applied for, do take some time to at least have a basic understanding so that you could describe in like 2 to 3 sentences what Atlas Corps does. Smile, be confident, and be honest. If you don't know the answer to a question, it's okay to say, I don't know. That's better than making up an answer. It's fine to say something like, oh, I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is that Atlas Corps is sponsoring my program, and I'll be serving full-time at Acumen, and I'm looking forward to developing my skills so that I can come back to my country, etc., etc. So, with all that said, we're going to do a practice interview, and like I said, visa interviews, if they go well, they can be really short. Your visa interview may not go into this much detail, but you should be prepared to answer all these questions. I always say it's better to be over-prepared and have more information than you need to know than to be under-prepared and you know, not know what to say. So it's not essential that you know every one of these answers by heart, but the important thing is to be honest and confident when you're saying these answers. And the way we've sort of set up this interview, like I said, I'm going to be the consular officer. Sudakshina will be pretending to be a fellow. And a few times in this interview, she's mostly going to be giving the correct answer. A few times in this interview, she's going to give the wrong answer, so you can see kind of what that sounds like, and then we're going to talk about why it's wrong and answer correctly. So it's not that Sudakshina doesn't know the answers, it's that it's a learning example for you guys. So let's jump right in. So what visa are you applying for?
The J1 exchange visa.
Great. And who is the program sponsor?
Acumen.
Okay, so this is the first wrong answer. Atlas Corps is the program sponsor of your visa. It will say this on your paperwork. You know, exchange visitor program, Atlas Service Corps. So the correct answer would be
Atlas Corps.
Great. So, you know, I've never heard of Atlas Corps. Who are they and what do they do?
You know, I'm not really sure. It's like an international fellowship program. I'm not really sure.
So this would be the wrong answer. And if that's what you would say about Atlas Core right now, because you guys don't know us that well, understandably, you should make sure you know a little bit about us to give sort of a brief summary. You should be comfortable saying at least a basic description of Atlas Core. So if you were to describe Atlas Core.
Atlas Core is an international exchange program for nonprofit leaders, and they offer a year-long fellowship to serve full-time at a host organization in the U.S. and learn nonprofit management skills that fellows can apply in their home countries.
Great. And where will you be placed?
I'll be placed at Acumen.
Mm-hmm. And so will you be working there?
Yes.
So this is another wrong answer, because like I said, a consular officer could say, oh, you're applying for the wrong visa. A J-1 visa is not for working or employment. It's for training. So if someone asks you if you're going to be working there, you would say,
no, I'll be training in a nonprofit management skills program.
Mm-hmm. And who is Acumen?
Acumen is another organization committed to developing rising leaders, just like Atlas Core. And Atlas Core and Acumen are partners. Atlas Core sponsors our visas, and Acumen leads our training program in collaboration with Atlas Core.
Great. And what other aspects of the training program are there?
Our training program will include learning and reviewing skills, including but not limited to negotiations, communication, finance, things like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have already gotten a schedule for your like training in New York. If you haven't, basically you'll be covering a lot of topics related to social entrepreneurship and finance and collaboration with other organizations, like just a wide variety of really interesting topics. If you look at your training plan that we're going to be sending to you by email today, it actually says in the, it's like page 3, I think, it describes what you're going to be doing during your time in New York. So that's a good thing to look at. It describes kind of the training you'll be going through if you want to, refresh your memory of like what you'll be doing in New York and what your training is like. You guys are probably more familiar with it than I am. So how long is the program?
12 months.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get accepted into this program?
I applied online and was interviewed by a staff member. I was then interviewed by a staff person at my host organization and then selected out of hundreds of applicants. So it's a really big honor.
Great. And again, you guys know more about your application process than I do. And so, whatever the process was for you, you can describe it there. But, make sure to emphasize it was really competitive. It's a prestigious program, and you did go through a lot of steps to get where you are. And why do you want to do this program?
I want to learn new methods and perspectives on things like leadership, finance, communication. And after this fellowship, I want to come back to my country and apply those skills to my community.
Great. And again, this is just a sample answer, but you guys should say whatever is honest and true for you guys, like what reasons you have for doing the fellowship. And how will this program make you a better person?
I think it'll help me learn leadership skills, and I'll get a chance to meet lots of rising nonprofit leaders from around the world. And again, this will just give me a lot of new perspective.
Mm-hmm. Great. And let's see, do you have a college degree?
Yes.
And where did you study?
Syracuse University.
And do you have a job now? And what do you do?
Yes. Right now I'm working at a firm in my community, working in finance.
Great. And if you just left a job to do Acumen, you should still mention it. It shows ties back to your home country or whichever country you're currently in, that you have like career options. I did want to pause briefly and insert one more tip that's kind of specific to Acumen. We have had consular officers in the past sort of question how good a fit what you guys do and what Atlas Core does, how they relate to each other, because a lot of you guys are in the business sector or doing finance or something that is often seen as like, a business kind of job, whereas Atlas Corps often bills itself as nonprofit or social sector. And you know, and I know that the line between those two different sectors is not as black and white as some people think, that there's social enterprises and there's businesses that do things for social impact. So it's going to be really important that you emphasize this when you talk about your background and what you'll be doing, because you want to show that there's a connection there and that this actually is a good fit for what you're doing, that you will be learning how to apply your business skills to the social sector, or how to, for social impact, things like that. Because we have had fellows get a lot of questions about that before. So be prepared to talk about that connection, if that makes sense, like between your current job, even if you're just doing finance, and how you apply finance skills to, a social enterprise or something along those lines. Great. Or if you're in energy, that you're doing something with sustainable energy, something so there's a connection to a social issue. All right, so if you have questions about that, let us know. But we'll keep on moving on to the next session. Or question. What are you going to do after the program?
I'm not really sure. I might stay on with the host organization. I just want to keep my options open.
Okay, so this would be the wrong answer. The answer should come from you, but it should involve returning to either your home country or your home region. In other words, leaving the U.S. and working in, the social sector, working in something in your field, or maybe getting a graduate degree if you don't already have one. If you plan to return to the same job or organization after the fellowship, it's helpful to have your supervisor write a letter of support, supporting your participation in the program and that, and your return to the organization afterwards. Not a requirement, just something that has been helpful in the past if you do have like a job kind of waiting for you back home. And so a better answer for what are you going to do after the program might be,
I'm actually going to be coming back to working with the organization that I'm working with right now, and I'll be able to pick up my job after the year-long fellowship, and hopefully I can apply the skills that I learned to this position.
Great. All right, and have you been to the U.S. before?
No.
Okay. If you have been, obviously, you'd say it there and note what kinds of visas you've been on, or if you were on a visa waiver program. And then another question that a consular officer might ask is, have you applied for a visa before, and have you ever been denied a visa? And if so, why? I can't quite remember from the surveys you filled out if anyone was denied a visa. But if you have been denied a visa before, and I think most people had, a solid record, but if you have been denied a visa to the U.S. before, you should be honest about it. You don't need to bring it up unless the consular officer brings it up, but they'll be able to see your previous visa denials on your record anyway. So it actually really hurt your case to lie about it. You should be prepared to talk calmly and confidently about the reasons for your previous denial and why this time was different. Don't get defensive or upset. Just talk about why you were denied and why this time is different. Again, if you have individual questions about your specific case, we'd be happy to answer them at another point. Do you have family in the U.S., and what kind of visa are they on?
I don't.
Okay, great. And if you do have family, feel free to mention them here. And what is your biggest motivation to come back to your country?
For me, it's definitely my family first. All my family is there, and again, I really want to come back and work with the organization that I'm at right now to bring all the skills that I've hopefully be learning during the fellowship. Great.
So yeah, things to talk about there are your family, your career goals, or your job. If you have property, like if you own a house or something like that. All of those things are things you can talk about as motivations to return home. And how much money are you putting into the program? Yeah. So I don't think you guys necessarily pay a participation fee. I could be wrong about that. If you guys do pay a fee, this would be where you would mention it. But I'm not 100% sure if you guys pay a fee or not. I can't quite recall. Sorry. But if you guys do pay a fee, you guys would know about it. How much money are you going to be making during the fellowship?
$2,700 a month.
Great. And how are you going to make that work?
Well, the program will provide for my basic needs, so I really need to just stick to a budget and avoid, unnecessary expenses.
Great. Exactly. So $2,700 in New York. So just to clarify, you make that amount while you're in New York, which is roughly like 2 or 3. It's like 3 months of your fellowship at the beginning and the end. You're not making $2,700 a month while you're in your field placements. I don't know the exact amount of your field placements, but because of the amount that you're making for the couple months that you're in the U.S., that's what we put on your visa paperwork. Though obviously it's a different amount, much closely tied to the living expenses where in your field placement for the rest of the time you're here. In any case, New York is an expensive place. It's especially expensive if you're just there temporarily and can't get like a year-long lease. So it is important to talk about budgeting your money, and the money is there for your basic needs. And who is paying you?
Atlas Corps will pay the stipend.
Yes, so we disperse your stipend. It's money from Acumen, but we take care of that logistical piece. And where does the program get their funding from?
Atlas Corps receives about 75% of its funding from host organizations, and the rest comes from donors and even funding from the U.S. government.
Right. So Atlas Corps, we receive funding from organizations like Acumen, and we also do receive funding from the U.S. State Department. Not funding for your particular fellowship, but we have received grants from them before. So that basically covers the questions we wanted to go over. And let me take a brief pause and just see if anyone had any questions so far. So it looks like no, so I'll just keep on going. The last thing I wanted to go over was what to take with you to the appointment. So bring everything we sent to you in your DHL package. That includes your DS 2019. It says Certificate of Eligibility at the top. An I-901 payment receipt. This is the $180 fee that we've already paid. There's a couple pieces of background information about Atlas Corps. There's like a official offer letter, or like this, congratulations, you've been accepted for the fellowship. That letter, that is kind of your official offer letter, in addition to the offer letter you received from Acumen. And then there's also a letter to the consular officer that is in there. So, and then finally there's the DS7002, which we're going to be sending to you by email very, very soon. We're just gathering all the signatures. You should also bring Form DS-160. This is the form that you either are filling out or have already filled out from the embassy's website. You should obviously bring your passport and bring a 2x2 inch photograph. You should bring any documents that demonstrate like binding ties to your country. And so those documents could include a marriage certificate if you're married, a letter from your current employer if they're supporting you in this endeavor, proof of residency, like a lease or a deed or something like that. All of those are documents that can support your case. None of them are required, but they're just good to have it as well. You should bring the terms and conditions, the kind of contract that we had you guys sign, and you can even bring whatever agreement you signed with Acumen. Again, it's just more supporting documents. And then just double check your embassy's website to just make sure that if there's any country-specific documents or requirements that you need to be aware of. Yes, so that's basically what to bring with you. And that's what we wanted to cover today. So we're going to be online for another, 3 to 5 minutes in case anyone writes in questions. I know there's also a little delay in, between what we say and what shows up in the video. So if you have any questions, please type them in the comments box in the next couple minutes, and we'll take a minute to answer them. If not, or if you're watching this later, just email us your questions, and we'd be more than happy to answer them. And so keep us up to date on your visa process, scheduling your appointment if you have any questions, all of that. And then also let us know as soon as possible after you actually have the appointment how it went. So whichever way it went. If you're approved, awesome, great, we'd love to hear it. If for some reason there's a problem or you were denied a visa, don't panic. Let us know as soon as possible so we can work on, how to potentially fix it and having you go for a second interview in most cases. So it's unlikely. We all think you're going to do a great job at your visa interviews, but if you do encounter any challenges, please let us know as soon as possible. So just without further ado, I'll just sort of check the comments section here and see if anyone has written anything. And just we'll be online for another minute or two to see if anyone writes anything. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. All right, I don't see any questions yet, so we're gonna sign off now. But please feel free to email us. Don't hesitate to let us know if you have questions. We are happy to help. So thanks so much for watching, and see you all later.